Thank you, Senator Lee. I'll be managing time for a moment while Chair Durbin votes, and I'm up next, followed by Senator Kennedy. I want to thank our panel for your testimony, in particular, Ms. Bride, to you for bringing your advocacy to the Senate amidst this nightmare that you and your family have lived and continue to live. Ms. Lemke, thank you for your extraordinarily well-considered and powerful testimony. Ms. DeLon, as you know and as you mentioned in your opening statement, Senator Grassley and I have legislation to strengthen federal protections against sexual abuse of children, including online exploitation. And we were able to pass that legislation through the Senate last Congress with bipartisan support, not yet through the House. We're hoping to do that this Congress with your help. And a key aspect of this bill is to ensure that the law is keeping up with technology. And to ensure that when abusers use webcams or online messaging platforms to target children, that the full strength of federal law can be brought to bear to prosecute them and to protect children from other crimes. Can you describe briefly, please, Ms. DeLon, the necessity of ensuring that relevant federal statutes keep up with technology and how these threats evolve?
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for your leadership on that with Senator Grassley. We look forward to, continuing to work with you and your staff. It is important, as we're talking about the continual evolution of threats to our children. Technology, was mentioned earlier, moves much faster than the legislative process, and it's very important and encouraging to be here today to hear from all of you kind of leading the charge here of ensuring that our legislative proposals and legislative pieces that you're considering are actually matching the technology. What you mentioned, Senator, about live streaming, that's being considered in your bill. We have seen an evolution with children being sexually exploited who there is not a physical abuser who is actually physically touching them. And we need to ensure that the legislation actually reflects that children are being exploited, children are being sexually victimized by individuals in different countries, in different states, in different rooms. And this is something that we continue to see where offenders are moving children from social media platforms, maybe where they introduce, and then move them to a more, a different platform where they would have live abuse ability, as well as individuals who are selling children for sexual performance online. So thank you for recognizing that evolution of technology needs to be reflected in legislation.
Thank you, Ms. DeLon. And the same legislation that I've offered with Senator Grassley also strengthens law enforcement as they prosecute those who cross state lines or international lines to abuse children. What are you seeing now in terms of trends and dynamics in so-called sex tourism, particularly as it pertains to the abuse of children?
Sex tourism, certainly, you still have people who are traveling to other countries, taking advantage of lax laws and poverty to sexually exploit children. We do, of course, see now an increase, if you want to call it sex tourism, of individuals who are virtually streaming, live streaming, sexually exploiting children in impoverished countries and paying them via, online apps. So this is something that we continue to see as a problem, actually getting worse because of the new ways that people can communicate live streaming.
Well, our bipartisan legislation, as you know, will help to crack down on online abusers as well as those who cross state lines or international lines to attack children. I thank you for your continued support for the legislation. Finally, just briefly, Senator Blackburn ran out of time and had another question that she wanted to ask. I want to make sure to get that to Dr. Prinstein. And Ms. Lemke, you in a very candid and personal way, described the impact that the use of these technologies had on your psyche. And I know that in particular for other young people around the country, they've experienced the same dynamic, the formation of dependence, the impact on self-image and mental health. And I thank you for sharing your story. And I want to ask you, Dr. Prinstein, if you could just speak for a moment about the long-term negative psychological impact that, in particular, young people can experience as a result of their use of social media and how we in Congress should think about addressing that.
Scientists are working as fast as we can to give you those answers. It's something that requires us to follow kids as they mature and see how it is that they develop. We do know that there are numerous online communities and opportunities to engage with content that actually teaches kids how to cut themselves, how to engage in behaviors that are consistent with an eating disorder, how to conceal these behaviors from their parents and adults, and they sanction young people when they discuss the possibility of engaging in adaptive rather than maladaptive behaviors. Many of these online posts and communities have no warnings, no trigger warnings to indicate that these might be concerning for kids. And of course, that's something that is directly associated with kids' likelihood of engaging in these maladaptive behaviors themselves.
Thank you, Dr. Prinstein. Deeply disturbing and certainly warrants regulatory attention. Appreciate your testimony. Senator Kennedy, you're next for 5 minutes.